This episode is sponsored by JDAQA Software Testing, your scalable solution for manual, automated, security, and performance testing. Check us out at jdaqa.com. And with that, let's get on with the show.
This is The First Customer, hosted by Jay Agnew.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the First Customer Podcast. My name is Jay Agnew. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Eric Gremminger. He is the CEO and co-founder at ERP Health. Eric, how you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Good to see you. Where are you based out? You're in Philly somewhere, right?
Yeah, we're in Old City, second
Old
Chestnut
City.
for our headquarters, where I'm
All
at
right.
today.
And you really enjoy parking after the snowstorms. I heard that was one of your
It's interesting. It's
favorite
an
things to
interesting
do.
puzzle to figure out. It's an adventure, though. Life's
An
supposed to be
adventure. Okay.
Yeah.
That's one way to put it. All right. Well, where did you grow up, and did that have any impact on you being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up Delaware County for the first part of my life. Then we moved out to Chester County, Kennett Square for high school. And yeah, I mean, it was a great childhood. I guess I got to see a lot of kind of entrepreneurial type people. My mom was a teacher, actually, but she had a very kind of, I think, unique perspective on teaching. She was always encouraging her students to try new things, to bring various, I guess, skills into the curriculum. And I'll just share a particular story. I can remember her being so excited. And this is going back a while, before kind of rap music was as big as it is. And she kind of convinced her class to turn a project into a rap song.
Okay.
And I just, little things like that, I was blessed to witness growing up. So
Sure.
I guess that always made me want to think a little bit outside the box. And I would tie that to entrepreneurship. So
Okay.
that's about where I grew up, but definitely within my family dynamic, there was a lot of creativity.
Sure. It continues to be a theme that educators have entrepreneur children. I meet so many people I'm going to have to run the numbers eventually, because there has to be a good 50% of the people we talk to have some education people.
The researcher in me needs to know the correlation.
Yeah, well, we'll figure it out. We'll do a side project. We'll do a side study, and we'll see if we can find something. All right.
I'll what was co-author of that with you.
There you go. Dude, I would be honored. What's the first business you started? Was it ERP Health?
No, actually, the first business that I started was called Better and Better Fitness and Personal Development. So I have a personal training background. I love it. And I have a psychology background. That's what my degree is in, right here from Drexel University. Shout out to Drexel, go Dragons.
There you go.
I would do boot camp style classes, and I would have them do positive affirmations at the various sites. So if it was battle ropes, they would say something. And the goal was to combine the mind and the body to help to recondition some existing patterns that people have, primarily worked with people in addiction. It was a lot of fun.
Okay.
So that was really the first entrepreneurial venture that I stepped into. Interestingly enough, what I do now can actually lead a little bit back to that.
Was it just you? Like, tell me more about this business. Like, what was how are you making money off this? Were people paying you to come to this?
It was a side job, so it wasn't a full-time gig.
Sure.
But yeah, basically standard boot style or boot camp prices. So small group will probably pay somewhere between $35 and $40 to participate. So you wouldn't get one-on-one training like you would pay $120 for, but you would show up to this class and essentially get a really good workout and hopefully leave there feeling a lot better than you came in. So, it made a little bit of money, definitely covered itself. I would buy the equipment based on what I brought in, but it wasn't, it was as much a passion entrepreneurial venture as it was, a moneymaker.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think the passion ones are kind of where we learn a lot of the
you learn so much.
It's like you get a lot of the initial rust off,
I think it was a good lesson too as an entrepreneur. I mean, I wasn't at a point where I could just quit everything and start something new. So this allowed me to kind of learn to kind of cultivate certain skill sets that would definitely benefit me later in life, but also have the security blanket, the health insurance, the things that I wasn't going to have. So it was, it's a nice starting point if you are thinking about entering into entrepreneurship, but you aren't in a position where you could just say, let me just go for it.
Yep. Yep.
There are ways to do it and kind of get the benefits of both worlds for a while until that other one supersedes the job.
Yep. I love it. I'm a consulting evangelist. I think everybody should do it. Consult, freelance, have a side thing, do it like do something on the side,
Totally.
and then it'll grow into something, or it doesn't. And if you find out it's not for you, you just want to, make some extra money on the side, great. But it's a great gateway drug to entrepreneurship. Just getting out there and doing some side hustle stuff
100%.
and doing your
I
thing.
look
So,
back so fondly on those days. I think it was great.
so what was next? So, I mean, this was, you graduated. It was, I mean, not going to say that was maybe wasn't your ideal landing spot, but like what were you doing 9 to 5 that was like kind of related to what you went to school for? Like you're still kind of fresh out of Drexel, you kind of doing this thing on the side. Like what were you doing in that space?
So we might want to go back a little bit because I went
Sure.
back to Drexel as an adult,
Okay.
and finished my degree August 4th, 2010. My life basically hit a rock bottom moment after about a decade of struggling with addiction and mental health conditions. 32 years old, nothing really to my name, and had to essentially build a life for myself with the help of so many people. But until I could get the addiction under control, like I wasn't going to really be able to make any positive difference in my life. So August 4th, 2010 is kind of when my journey started, and that's my sobriety date. It's something that I take a lot of pride in, and went back to Drexel after 5 years of being in recovery, learning about myself, understanding, things about myself that were leading to certain patterns in my life, finding, like I said, a group of people who are willing to help me through sharing their experiences and taught me how to be vulnerable, taught me how to put other people first and make a positive contribution, or try to, and kind of leverage your experiences that were, negative, and try to turn them into a positive. So I didn't go back to Drexel until my mid 30s. And, I went there with a very specific intention to learn and understand diagnostic criteria or psychology. Like I wanted to understand like what drove me even better, like what drove me, and then how I could leverage that information to help other people.
Hmm.
While I was doing that, I was working at a company that serviced molding for Home Depots, which was a temp job that led into like a full-time job that I absolutely loved. And it was interesting. I would have to drive. I had an area where I would go to Home Depot and essentially straighten up the molding aisle. And my territory, and I worked my way up to this area manager, which, by the way, when you're kind of starting off, like earning things, like working hard and getting into the next layer, it was doing so much for my confidence,
Hmm.
as a person, which I didn't have those things. Like I
Sure.
wasn't somebody who did great in high school, went to college, went to grad school. There are plenty of those entrepreneur stories out there. Mine is not that story. Mine is like literally school of hard knocks, get the crap kicked out of you. I take full responsibility. My decisions led to a lot of that. But yeah, I found myself going back to school at the same time working this job. So I would drive to Albany, New York, as a for instance, which was part of my territory, work 9 to 5. On the way driving out there, and this is going back a little bit, I would buy these CDs at Barnes and Noble of like motivational messages and education, and just like was kind of reconditioning my mind. And then I would work 9 to 5. I'd go to the hotel. I would plug in the computer, take the psychology courses online, which, they more or less had just started at that time. And then I finished my degree and a different job.
That's a there's a I've come to not love the phrase there's a lot to unpack there, but there's a lot to unpack there. There's to stay moving and focused. First of all, congratulations. We talked about our shared connection of August 4th. That's my
Yeah,
birthday. So I feel like the universe has brought us together. We have to be
that's
friends now.
incredible.
There's nothing we can really do about it. We kind of have to be
We
friends at
share a
this point,
special
but
day.
we share a special day, me, you, and Obama. But, I've heard this story before, and, this, it's 2026. I mean, that was a long time ago. my question to all of that, and kind of leading back into kind of more of a business thought and personal as well, though, is like, you have all these wins and you get back on track and you're doing all this stuff and you're going through recovery and you're like, kind of, like you said, you're learning to win stuff again, right?
Yeah.
My question is, what do you do when that kind of wears off? Like when you've been making these wins and you've been doing these things, and we've all been, entrepreneurs have been doing it for 10 plus years. Like we've had tons of wins. Like no balloons come out of the ceiling when like something big happens. No, there's no parade in your office when like some, win a client or whatever. It's like it's a moment in time. You move on, you're on to the next thing. How do you kind of stay excited or motivated, or like keep those like juices flowing, those receptors kind of firing to get that next rung on the ladder, after you've just kind of done it so many times over and over again? What keeps you still kind of going to the next thing?
I mean, the mission, it might sound a little bit kind of corny, and I don't mean it to, because I have developed over the years strong business acumen. I do understand and appreciate kind of unit economics, and I have my eyes on the numbers at all points. But when I get a report from somebody, a treatment center, I just got one the other day, super excited. A large treatment center in Delaware County validated their outcomes using our technology and found, and this is a MAT program, which is medication assisted treatment, a lot of stigma around it. Their program lifted employment for this population, satisfaction with employment, because they get them jobs, by like 90%. And I mean, this dude called me stoked, Jay. I mean, it wasn't about business. It wasn't about how he's going to leverage this to get more funding.
Yeah.
And that's all there. Like, this was a personal call, of like how excited he was that he got to help these people and he could play a role in reducing stigma. I mean, I get those calls. I also do public speaking as it relates to like sharing my story and try to prevent high school kids from going down a similar path. So I've done that for so long where I'll get almost like these little drips, like an email, a phone call, a text, and it's not related to business. It's related to mission. It's related to like, look, people's lives are changing, as a result of, primarily them, but something that I did to support that.
Yeah.
And like that to me is the best. And then aside from like that, systems. Like I've learned to love systems, not outcomes. If that makes sense. Like there's structure to my day, how I start my day, how I end my day, how I am as a father, and then what I do the minute I get here to the office. And if I hit those system milestones, like I said, I'm going to do this and I do it. It might not produce an outcome right away. It might not be the exciting, massive dopamine hit when we just signed a multi-million-dollar contract, but it keeps me going. Like it's the little mile markers that I tend to set up in my head where I'm like, as long as I hit this, I feel accomplished.
Yep.
That's been helpful for me. So, and it's interesting because, and you've probably dealt with that, and I'm sure you talk to entrepreneurs who will verify this. Even when you get the multi-million-dollar deals or like the big deals that you've been waiting so long for, and it was a 3-year sales cycle, you're excited for like an hour.
An hour max. Man. Like it's not even,
You hear you helped somebody and you like kind of internalize that and you're like, holy crap, man.
That's cool. I do like that. And I think that's a great answer. All right. Well, tell me about ERP Health, man. Where did it come from? How did it get started? Like, tell me about the first customer. Let's dig into a little bit and hear what it is and where it came from.
Sure. A little bit about us. Philadelphia-based outcome tracking, measurement-based care technology. I started doing this work in 2014, actually in pen and paper format. Really just with a simple desire. I wanted to help people who were struggling with addiction like I once was. And I'd go around locally here in Philadelphia, would literally knock on treatment center doors. And if they'd let me in, I'd set up this easel that I used to carry around and this poster board. And I would passionately explain to them why I believe that feedback-informed treatment, which is what we were calling this back then, and my program, this program that I created, could help to personalize care and save lives. Ultimately, that earned me the nickname Easel Eric here in Philadelphia. People call me Easel E for short. Eventually, a few providers gave me a shot, and the process would go like this. We would engage patients on a weekly basis with these pen and paper assessments. They would complete them. The clinicians would collect them each week. They would fax them to me. So we're going back a little bit now. I would get the facts. I'd research the findings, put together a statistical analysis by hand of where that community needed the most help, and then I would send the results back to the clinical team so they could integrate that information into care to ensure the patients were progressing. Now that three-phase system, engage, research, progress, that's actually what ERP stands for. It's how we got our name. I was lucky enough to meet my partner, Nick, in 2017. He was one of the owners of a treatment center that was licensing this program that I had, but he's also a programmer by training. And he had spent his career actually building behavioral health technologies. And he's like, look, man, I see your passion for helping people, but let's be honest, if you're doing this by hand, maybe you could help hundreds of people. If we turn this into a technology, we could help millions of people. And that's what led to the creation of Grow in 2019, which is our enterprise-grade outcome tracking platform, currently being used nationwide by some of the largest addiction treatment and mental health providers to facilitate measurement-based care, promote health equity, and position their organizations for value-based contracting. Yeah, it started. I'll pause there and see if there's any questions.
No, you're good. You were rolling, man. You were good.
Yeah.
I think the most impressive thing is that you were still getting things by fax in 2014.
And interestingly, I was still doing the better and better fitness and personal development and still going to school.
Okay.
So I was kind of learning as I was going, but just fun fact, like in personal training, it's like table stakes if you're going to help somebody to have a baseline measurement to work off of.
Sure.
So we call it just a scale. It's like, get on the scale, you want to lose weight. I put together an exercise program. You come in 2 weeks and step on the scale, and I know if my program works.
Right.
The fact that it wasn't being done in clinical settings was almost mind-blowing to me.
Sure.
I was like, this is just basic,
right.
Like you should do.
Right.
So that was interesting.
So who was the first customer?
Our first customer was called Slow Recovery, and this will be interesting too from an entrepreneurial standpoint. So we raised a bunch of money. It's 2019. We're ready to take over the world. We launched the company officially 2020, and then the pandemic hits. And you're just kind of watching your run rate on the down. And we decided to do a LinkedIn blast. And we're like, okay, well, people are communicating virtually. We can't go out and do a roadshow or anything like that. Let's do a LinkedIn blast for like $500. And we found this service. And a guy reached out from the Pacific Northwest, Portland, Oregon. And he's like, yeah, that sounds super interesting. Can you give me a demo? So give him a demo in my garage. And he's like, can you fly out here and present this to my clinical team? Now, this is 2021 at this point, early 2021. So you could fly, but it was weird, man. I don't know if you flew during that time.
I didn't.
They had all these, like, you had to wear a mask, obviously, but it was every other row. And it was like,
wow.
So I fly out there, do a presentation for their clinical team. And then the guy was in recovery, and he's an AA guy. He's like, you want to come to this meeting with me? And I'm trying to just get a yes. I'm like, just give me a yes. So I go to this meeting with him, and then afterwards we go out to pizza, and it's almost like it wasn't getting talked about, you know. And I'm towards the very end of the night, I'm like, what do you think about the tech, man? You willing to buy it? And he's like, yeah, definitely. And he shakes my hand, and that was our first deal.
Wow.
Interesting point. They're still a customer to this day, and they recently actually just made an acquisition. So they're a growing organization, but they used our technology to get a significantly higher negotiated rate for co-occurring conditions with one of the major payers out there for using us for so long.
So what's the material difference, or is there, between a customer you guys would go after today and that first customer?
Well, we've evolved a lot since then. We recognized that an important first step is aligning with addiction treatment providers and mental health providers and getting them to measure the impact that they're having. But access is an issue with payers. So people were kind of coming to treatment centers where maybe they had good outcomes for a certain profile of people, but not for another profile of people.
Sure.
So we wanted to solve for that. And we actually built a technology where we're able to go further upstream into the population, work with insurance companies directly, offer health screens to their members, and then based on their demographic type and diagnostic type, match them to the treatment centers that are the appropriate fit for them using an algorithm. And that really has been a game changer for us, both from obviously that's vertical integration, and we're looking at a completely different, very large market with population health management, but being able to have fidelity to that core mission to make sure people are getting right care, right time, right place, truly, not just saying it. Like it sounds cool to say that, but when we have an African American female, 35 years old, with alcohol use disorder, using our technology, at the payer level, and we're able to, in seconds, list the top 5 treatment centers who have efficacy data related to that profile, the likelihood of them getting the help that they need goes way up, right? So that obviously from a mission perspective is great, but when you look at it from a total cost of care perspective, like the insurance companies are looking at it, like the cost savings is massive. And then at the same time, you're incentivizing the provider to do great work because they're getting more referrals. So anytime you're looking at healthcare, you want to look from an alignment perspective, right? There's patient, that's a stakeholder, providers are a stakeholder, and the payers are a stakeholder. And what we've been able to do is service these customers across the board, in a seamless way. So that's been an interesting evolution. Again, if you would have asked me in 2019, that was definitely not on the bingo card, to say the least. I don't even think I would have known what that meant.
Right.
Like, things didn't exist at that time. So stickability is important in entrepreneurship.
No, it is.
Stick with something long enough.
Stick with ability, for sure. All right, I have one more question, non-business related. I'm going to put a stipulation on this one for you because it's all we've talked about. Non-addiction or recovery related either. Just Eric being Eric. If you could do anything on earth and you knew you wouldn't fail, what would it be? And you see why I have to say the addiction recovery, because that was an easy one for you. You could have just easy said that. But anything on earth you knew you couldn't fail?
Anything on earth and I couldn't fail. That's a great question. If I had unlimited resources and I could do something and I couldn't fail and I know it would work, I have a theory that you drive up and down 95 here in the Philly area, and I would want to take all of I-95, wherever you see these stupid billboards, and I would put positive, motivational, uplifting messages, and I would take a baseline of people's generalized happiness, perceived happiness, before I do it and after I do it. And if I couldn't fail, I think I could change and uplift the mindset of people. Like,
you can't fail in this scenario, so it's a successful experiment. But I will say, this is probably one of the most doable answers I've had. Like, this seems possible. I feel like you could, if you just have to knock off Pond Lee hockey for the 75, billboards as you're going into the city. But if you could get any space there,
I think if I can't fail, like, that just always seems so cold to me. I've done a lot of cool things, so I don't know if that was a good answer.
No, I love that, dude.
That's the one that came to mind.
Can I tell you that
organic? So
it's never been said before, so you definitely win that one for sure. Out of 200,
think about these things. These are the
some,
things I think about.
250, 260 episodes. I think that was the first time. So if people want to hear more about anything they heard, recovery wise, or just to talk to you specifically, what's the best way for them to reach out to you directly?
You can email me directly, ejg@erphealth.com.
Beautiful. And if people want to find out more about ERP Health, what's the best way? You got an app? You go online? Where do you go?
Yeah, erphealth.com would be the best way to find us and contact us.
Beautiful. We'll link all that stuff together. Eric, I'm sure you hear it a lot, very inspirational, motivational story. But what I found most interesting about this call is it was about business. but you almost have to like pull it out of you because you're so, in your words, mission driven that, even some questions that could easily be answered about business or about something else, you kind of just fight to not always be talking about the things that you're so passionate about. And I find that very endearing and very cool. And I think, just like having a passion like that burning underneath, I would imagine, has taken you very far and will continue to take you very far. It's a cool thing. And I thank you for being on today. Very cool story. People reach out if they need anything, and then we'll see you again soon. All right. Thanks for being on, buddy.
Thanks so much for having me, Jay.
See you, Eric. Later, buddy.